Hey everyone, and welcome back. In the last chapter, Anya was just starting her search for Leo, but get ready because chapters 11 to 20 are a wild ride. We're talking high stakes culinary challenges, intense confrontations, and maybe, just maybe, a chance at reconciliation. Prepare for some serious drama, delicious food, and a whole lot of feels. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more so you don't miss a single moment of this epic reunion. Let's dive in.
Chapter 11 The Search Begins. Anya stepped out of the taxi, the warm Tuscan air swirling around her like a comforting embrace. The restaurant, nestled amidst a maze of cobblestone streets, seemed to pulse with a vibrant energy, its windows glowing with a warm, inviting light. She could smell the enticing aroma of simmering herbs and roasting meats, a symphony of flavors that tickled her senses and promised a culinary adventure. She didn't need to be a chef to know that this was a place where passion was poured into every dish, a place where Leo had found his calling. The restaurant, with its rustic charm and the promise of exquisite cuisine, reflected the man she had once known, a man with an unwavering passion for his art, a man who chased his dreams with an intensity that was both captivating and daunting. But right now, it was that intensity, that passion, that felt like a chasm between them. Anya knew that Leo wouldn't be the same man she had left behind. He had moved on, grown, evolved, become someone new. And she, in her pursuit of forgiveness, had to be ready to accept the man he had become, even if it meant facing the possibility of rejection. She took a deep breath, smoothing the wrinkles on her dress, her heart pounding in her chest. Her hand trembled as she reached for the door handle, a sense of anticipation and apprehension washing over her. She was on the precipice of a new chapter in her life, a chapter that promised to be both challenging and transformative. The bell above the door chimed as she entered, announcing her arrival to the bustling restaurant. The interior was warm and inviting, a symphony of soft lighting, brick walls, and exposed beams. The air was thick with the aroma of freshly baked bread and simmering sauces, a culinary crescendo that filled her senses with a sense of comfort and anticipation. Anya took a moment, allowing her eyes to adjust to the light, to absorb the atmosphere, to take in the scene before her. She scanned the faces around her, looking, hoping, for a glimpse of him, a familiar smile, a knowing look. But there was nothing. Just a flurry of activity, waiters bustling about, patrons engaged in animated conversations, the rhythmic clatter of plates and silverware. The warmth and the energy of the place were undeniable, but it felt like a world away from the life she once shared with Leo. He was here, somewhere within these walls. But she felt utterly lost, like a solitary traveler in a bustling metropolis. "Can I help you, Signorina?" a voice asked. Anya turned to see a waiter, his face etched with the lines of experience, approaching her with a friendly smile. Anya's heart stuttered. The Italian language, once a comforting memory of their shared college trip, felt foreign and intimidating. She struggled to gather her thoughts, her voice trembling as she replied, I'm looking for someone, Leo Rossi." The waiter's smile wavered slightly. "Leo Rossi? Ah, you must mean Chef Rossi." Anya nodded, relief washing over her. "Yes, him. Do you know where I can find him?" "He is in the kitchen, preparing for tonight's service. But he is very busy. You will have to wait until service is over. Would you like a table in the meantime?" Anya's heart sank slightly. Waiting felt like an eternity. She didn't want to intrude on his time, but the thought of leaving without speaking to him felt unbearable. "Perhaps," she said, her voice hesitant, "if you could tell him I'm here, I would be grateful. And, if it's not too much trouble, I'd love to order a glass of wine while I wait." The waiter nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Of course, Signorina. I will let him know. And what would you like to drink?" Anya felt a rush of gratitude. He seemed kind, patient, and she felt a sliver of hope that he might even understand her plight. She had to find a way to talk to Leo. She had come so far, endured so much, and she wouldn't let anxiety or fear stop her now. "A Chianti," she replied, "if you please." The waiter smiled again, his eyes twinkling. "Excellent choice, Signorina. I will bring it right away." As he walked away, Anya took a deep breath, letting the warmth of the restaurant, the tantalizing aromas, and the Italian music playing in the background wash over her. Her journey was far from over. But as she looked around at the bustling restaurant, she felt a surge of determination. She was here, she was ready, and she wouldn't leave until she had spoken to him, shared her apology, and perhaps, just perhaps, found a path towards forgiveness. Chapter 12 First Encounter. The Chianti, a deep, ruby-red liquid that promised warmth and comfort, arrived at Anya's table. She took a sip, the rich, earthy flavor filling her mouth. The wine, a reminder of their shared college trip to Italy, felt like a thread connecting her to the past, to Leo, to a time before their paths diverged. As she sat there, taking small sips of her wine and watching the diners around her, Anya felt a wave of anxiety wash over her. The restaurant was alive with a vibrant energy, a symphony of chatter, laughter, and the clinking of glasses. She felt like an outsider looking in, her heart pounding in her chest, a mix of anticipation and fear. "You're a brave one, coming all this way," a voice said. A woman, her face lined with laughter, smiled at Anya from the neighboring table. "It's hard to get a reservation here, you know." Anya smiled back, feeling a warmth spread through her. She had been so focused on her own anxieties that she hadn't noticed the woman before. "I've heard good things," she replied, the words feeling awkward and inadequate. "About the food, I mean." "Oh, the food is divine," the woman said. "But the real attraction is the chef. Luca Rossi." Anya's heart skipped a beat. "Rossi?" she echoed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Are you sure?" The woman tilted her head, her eyebrows raised in amusement. "Of course, I'm sure. He's quite famous in these parts. A true master of his craft." The woman's words hung in the air, a jarring realization echoing in Anya's mind. Leo Rossi, the passionate chef who had captured her heart, had become Luca Rossi, a renowned culinary artist, a man she had only glimpsed through the lens of carefully crafted blog posts and photographs. And the restaurant, she now realized, was not just a place where he worked, but a testament to the man he had become. "Is he married?" Anya asked, the words barely audible, her heart sinking as she realized how foolish the question sounded. The woman laughed, a melodic sound that somehow felt reassuring. No, he's not married. But he's certainly not wanting for admirers. He's quite a catch, you know. Charming, talented, and oh so passionate." Anya felt a pang of discomfort at the woman's casual observation, a fleeting wave of insecurity. Was she foolish? Was she out of place? Was she deluding herself with an impossible hope? "But he's not," Anya began, but the words stalled in her throat. She couldn't bring herself to ask the question that was burning in her mind, the question that gnawed at her heart. "Not yet." Suddenly, the waiter returned to her table, his face lit with a warm smile. "Ah, I see you have met our lovely neighbor," he said. "She is a regular here. She always enjoys a glass of Chianti with her dinner." He paused, then added, "Your friend, Chef Rossi, wanted me to deliver this to you." He placed a small, beautifully wrapped gift on her table. "He sends his regards, and he will see you shortly after service." A rush of warmth coursed through Anya. He had remembered her. He had sent her a message. He was willing to see her. A glimmer of hope rekindled within her. This was her chance to confront her guilt, to seek his forgiveness, to perhaps even rekindle the love they had shared. She reached for the gift, her fingers trembling slightly. She unwrapped it, revealing a small, antique silver spoon, etched with the inscription Luca Rossi and adorned with a delicate floral design. It was a beautiful, simple thing, a token of his artistry, a testament to his passion for the craft that had stolen her heart years ago. "Thank you," Anya said, her voice filled with a mixture of gratitude and anticipation. "Tell him I'm grateful for his time." As the waiter turned to leave, Anya paused, taking a deep breath. She had come this far, faced her fears, embraced vulnerability, and crossed the finish line. Now, she had to be ready for what was to come. Anya raised her glass, her heart filled with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. To new beginnings, she whispered, a silent toast to the uncertain future that lay ahead. Chapter 13 The Restaurant. The air crackled with anticipation as Anya sat at her table, the antique silver spoon resting beside her glass of Chianti. Every sound in the restaurant, the clinking of glasses, the murmurs of conversation, the rhythmic clatter of plates and silverware seemed amplified, each one a beat in a symphony of expectation. She couldn't remember feeling this nervous, this excited, this uncertain. It had been years since she'd last seen Leo, years since she had felt this raw, exposed, vulnerable. The familiar restaurant, filled with the comforting aromas that had once captivated her, now felt strangely alien, a stage for a confrontation she wasn't sure she was ready for. The woman at the neighboring table, seemingly sensing Anya's agitation, smiled and offered a reassuring gesture. "It's always like this," she said, her voice a soothing balm to Anya's tense nerves. "He keeps his patrons waiting, keeps them wanting more, you see. But it's worth it." Anya nodded, a hesitant smile gracing her lips. This wasn't a performance, not a staged encounter, however. It was a reckoning, a confrontation with a past she couldn't escape. She idly traced the floral etching on the silver spoon, the cold metal a stark contrast against the warmth of her palm. It was a gift, a token of his artistry, a reminder of the man he had become, a man she had loved once, but had hurt irrevocably. Just then, the restaurant door swung open, and a wave of warmth embraced Anya, the scent of fresh herbs and wood-fired bread, the melodious chatter of the diners, the vibrant energy of the place. It was all so familiar yet so different. She looked up, her heart skipping a beat as she saw him. He was standing in the doorway, his figure silhouetted against the evening light. Years had passed, but he was still the same, tall, lean, with a captivating aura that drew her gaze. His face, which once held the youthful innocence of a college student, now had a mature strength etched into it, his eyes holding a depth she hadn't anticipated. He was no longer the boy she had known, the boy who had made her heart race, who had stolen her breath. He was a man, a successful chef, a man whose aura emanated confidence, experience, passion. Anya felt a rush of emotions, a mix of longing, fear, and a desperate hope that he might have a similar flicker of recognition. He surveyed the restaurant, his gaze taking in the bustling scene. His eyes then landed on Anya, and a flicker of surprise crossed his face. He then acknowledged her with a nod, a small, seemingly polite gesture that held no hint of familiarity. Anya felt a pang of disappointment. He didn't recognize her, not immediately anyway. Her heart sank slightly, a fleeting wave of doubt washing over her. He was the same, yet somehow so different. He moved through the restaurant, his every step purposeful, his presence commanding attention. His charisma felt alluring, his confidence radiating from the very air around him. He reached her table, a smile gracing his lips, his voice calm and steady. "Welcome, Signorina. You must be Anya." The words, uttered in perfect English, stunned her. He knew her name, he knew her story. He knew she was the one who had hurt him. "Why, yes," she managed to choke out, her voice trembling. The air suddenly felt heavy, suffocating. All her carefully crafted lines, practiced during the long flight, vanished from her mind. She could only meet his gaze, her heart hammering against her ribs. "I've been expecting you," he said, his voice a low, rumbling tone that sent a chill down her spine. "How may I serve you tonight, Anya?" He looked at her, his eyes penetrating, his smile a touch too charming, a facade that masked a layer of unease she couldn't fully decipher. He was a man of subtle complexities, a man whose heart she couldn't fully read, a man she desperately needed to understand. This, she knew, was just the beginning. Chapter 14, Meeting Luca. The weight of anticipation pressed down on Anya as she finally faced Luca, or Leo as she still sometimes thought of him, across the table. He was a vision of refined elegance, a sharp contrast to the rustic charm of the restaurant. His dark hair was neatly styled, his tailored suit exuding an air of confidence, and his eyes, those eyes that once held a warmth that had captivated her, now seemed to hold a calculating coolness. He was charming, charismatic, and undeniably handsome. And as he leaned across the table, his voice a velvety baritone, Anya felt a mixture of longing and fear. He was a man who could easily command a room, a man who could manipulate an audience with a simple glance and a soft smile. "You must be Anya," he said, his voice a smooth melody that sent tingles down her spine. "I appreciate you taking the time to come all this way." Anya struggled to find her voice. The words she had practiced, the carefully crafted apology she had rehearsed on the plane, felt inadequate in the face of his presence. He was a man of power, a man who had built an empire within these walls, and she felt like a ghost from a forgotten past, a shadow from a life that no longer existed. "Yes," she finally managed to say, her voice barely a whisper. I wanted to see you. It's important. He leaned back slightly, his smile fading slightly. I'm glad you made the journey, Anya, he said, his tone polite but distant. But I confess, I'm not quite sure what to make of this. He paused, taking a sip of his wine, his gaze lingering on her for a moment that felt like an eternity. His eyes seemed to search her, seeking an explanation, a justification. He didn't recognize her, not yet, not truly. You see, Anya, he continued, his voice low and smooth, I have no memory of you. I must admit, I've lived a very full life since my early days in college. I've built my career, my passions, my life. And I don't often look back. Anya's heart sank. He was right, of course. They had lived entirely different lives, even though they had shared that brief, intense chapter in their past. He had moved on, built a new identity, and she, still clinging to the memories, was a stranger in his world. I understand, she said, her voice choked with emotion. But it's important that we talk. I have something I need to tell you. He looked at her again, his eyes piercing, his gaze holding a mix of curiosity and skepticism. He was a man of control, a man who was used to being in charge, and Anya wasn't sure how to navigate his presence, how to break through the walls he so carefully built. Very well, he finally said, his voice still calm, measured. Tell me, Anya, what is so important that brought you all this way? What is it you want to say? Anya felt a knot of tension tightening in her stomach. She knew she had to speak, to confess, to apologize. But the words were stuck in her throat, choked by the fear and the uncertainty that plagued her. She took a deep breath, trying to calm her nerves. She had to face this, she had to confront her past, her regrets, and seek his forgiveness. But as she looked across the table at the man she had once loved, she felt a new kind of fear, a fear not of his rejection, but of his understanding. She was about to break open a Pandora's box, to expose the truth behind the facade she'd built, and she wasn't sure she was truly ready to face the consequences. Chapter 15: The Chef's Challenge. Luca's gaze held Anya captive, his eyes scrutinizing her with a keen intensity that made her skin prickle. This was not the man she had known, not the shy, passionate student she'd shared college days with. This was Luca Rossi, a man of power, a culinary genius, and someone who was clearly not convinced by her heartfelt plea. I admire your dedication, Anya, he said, his voice a low rumble that sent tremors through the restaurant's normally jovial atmosphere. To travel all this way, to confront the past. It takes a certain kind of courage. But actions speak louder than words, don't they? Anya's heart sank. The unspoken challenge hung in the air, a palpable tension that threatened to suffocate her. She had anticipated a conversation, a chance to express her remorse, to seek forgiveness. But this was different. Luca, it seemed, was not seeking reconciliation but proof. She began, her voice trembling, the words faltering in her throat. She had come prepared with a carefully crafted apology, a heartfelt confession of her mistakes, a plea for understanding. But Luca, it seemed, had a different agenda. I have a challenge for you, Anya, he said, his voice a low, commanding tone. A challenge to truly demonstrate your sincerity. Prove to me that you are not just a ghost from the past, but a woman of substance, a woman worthy of my time. Anya's eyes widened, her heart pounding in her chest. She had come seeking forgiveness, not a test. But the weight of his gaze, the intensity of his presence, left her with no choice but to accept the gauntlet he had thrown down. What kind of challenge? She asked, her voice a whisper barely audible above the murmur of the restaurant. It was a test of courage, a trial by fire, and she knew that the heat of his scrutiny was about to engulf her completely. Luca smiled, a cool, calculating gesture that sent a chill down her spine. Tonight, I'm hosting a special cooking class for a group of aspiring chefs. The theme: passion. I will give you the reins, Anya. You will design a dish. You will guide the students. And you will show me what you are truly capable of. Anya felt a wave of panic wash over her. Cooking had never been her forte. Her culinary skills limited to the occasional scrambled eggs or pasta dish. She was a novice, a dilettante compared to Luca, a master of his craft. But the challenge was not about skill or expertise. It was about sincerity, about the authenticity of her remorse, about the depth of her desire to make amends. I'm not a chef, she said, her voice barely a whisper. I don't know if I can. Luca's gaze lingered on her, unwavering, a silent pressure that left her with no option but to accept. Prove me wrong, Anya, he said, his voice low, steady, a challenge that was both terrifying and strangely exhilarating. Show me what you are truly capable of. He stood, extending a hand to guide her. Come with me, Anya, he said. It's time to get to work. Anya hesitated, taking a deep breath, gathering her courage. The kitchen, with its symphony of sizzling pans, bubbling pots, and the pungent aroma of spices, was a stark contrast to the elegant dining room. But as she stepped into the kitchen, surrounded by the raw energy of the culinary world, Anya felt a spark of determination flicker within her. She had been challenged, and she would face the test with everything she had. This was not just about proving Luca wrong. It was about proving to herself that she had the strength to confront her past, to own her mistakes, and to find her own path to redemption. The challenge, she realized, was just beginning. Chapter 16, Revisiting Memories. The warmth of the kitchen, the symphony of sizzling pans, the intoxicating aroma of spices, and the rhythmic clatter of kitchen tools. These were the sounds of Luca's world, a world Anya had only glimpsed through the lens of his blog posts and carefully curated photos. Now, standing amidst the chaos, she felt a strange sense of familiarity. It was a world that, for a brief, intense period, she had shared with him, a world that had once held the promise of a future they never got to build. Luca, a whirlwind of efficiency and precision, moved around the kitchen with a practiced grace that had Anya momentarily mesmerized. He was in his element, his face lit with a passion that was almost tangible as he instructed the students, a group of eager young chefs who listened intently, their eyes wide with admiration. Tonight, we're going to experiment with flavor profiles, Luca announced, a hint of excitement in his voice. The key is to push boundaries, to explore, to create. And Anya, please share your insights. You obviously have a unique understanding of what truly captures the essence of a dish. Anya's heart skipped a beat. She had not expected to be included in the lesson, but Luca's words, his gaze, seemed to expect her participation. She began, her voice faltering. She had a lifetime of experience in making simple pasta dishes, not in orchestrating complex culinary creations. It's about more than just technique, Luca said, his voice a gentle reminder. It's about emotions, the stories behind the food. And I believe you have a story to tell, Anya. He looked at her, a silent invitation, a challenge wrapped in a subtle gesture of encouragement. Anya felt a strange mix of fear and excitement welling up inside her. She had come to confront her past, to seek forgiveness, and suddenly, she found herself at the heart of Luca's world, surrounded by the raw energy of the culinary arts. As they worked together, the scent of basil, oregano, and garlic filling the air, Anya noticed a change in Luca's demeanor. He was no longer the distant, aloof man she had encountered in the dining room. He was passionate, engaging, and seemingly eager to share his knowledge. He was, after all, a chef who had dedicated his life to pushing boundaries and exploring flavors. This reminds me of a dish my grandmother used to make, Luca said, his eyes twinkling as he chopped vegetables with precision. It's simple, but the flavors come alive. Like the taste of childhood. Anya felt a sudden wave of nostalgia as the smell of the simmering sauce, the familiarity of the ingredients, the passion in his voice triggered a distant memory. It reminds me of a time in college, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Leo, you had this amazing way of chopping herbs. So quickly, so effortlessly. It always seemed like magic to me. She paused, her heart pounding in her chest. The name, Leo, the memory, felt like a breach in the carefully constructed wall she had erected around herself. She had come to Italy, to this restaurant, to this man, seeking forgiveness. And suddenly, she realized that forgiveness, true forgiveness, might be more about remembering than forgetting, about embracing the past rather than erasing it. Luca paused, his hands still, his eyes searching hers. He didn't seem angry, not in the least. He seemed, in fact, a bit surprised, as if she had just revealed a secret they had never shared. Leo, he repeated softly, the name rolling off his tongue like a forgotten melody. It had been a long time since I had heard that name. Anya felt a surge of guilt, a reminder of the pain she had caused him, the hurt she had inflicted. But there was also a sense of understanding. a realization that this man, this chef, this Luca Rossi, was a man who had carried a piece of her, a piece of their shared past, with him. I'm so sorry, she whispered, her voice barely louder than the sizzle of the pan. Luca nodded, his eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and understanding. We all have our regrets, he said, his voice soft and gentle, but, Anya, I am no longer the young man you once knew. I know, Anya said, her heart aching with a mixture of guilt and a desperate hope. And that's why I'm here. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Luca guided the students, his passion for food infectious, his instructions precise and engaging. Anya found herself participating, her knowledge of herbs and spices surprisingly relevant. Her own culinary journey somehow connected to this man, who had become a stranger. And as she worked alongside him, surrounded by the raw energy of the kitchen, she couldn't help but feel a sense of déjà vu. It was as if in that moment, they were not just participants in a cooking lesson but also time travelers, reliving a shared past, a past that had led them to this unexpected encounter, to this complicated moment of truth. She was here to seek forgiveness, to apologize for the pain she had caused. But now, in the heart of his kitchen, surrounded by the scent of simmering spices and the sounds of eager students, Anya realized that forgiveness, true forgiveness, might be more about remembering than forgetting, about embracing the past rather than erasing it. She knew that the journey ahead was long and uncertain. But as she looked across the kitchen at Luca, the man who was both a stranger and a familiar friend, she felt a flickering spark of hope, a hint of a possibility that maybe, just maybe, their past could be a bridge to a future they had never imagined. Chapter 17: The First Confrontation. The air in the kitchen crackled with unspoken tension as the last student left, leaving Anya and Luca alone amidst the remnants of their culinary experiment. The scent of herbs and spices lingered, a fragrant reminder of the hours spent together, a testament to their shared passion. Luca, unlike the calm, collected chef he had presented earlier, leaned back against the counter, his arms crossed, a simmering intensity replacing his earlier charm. Anya, he began, his voice a low growl, a stark contrast to the gentle timbre she remembered. You are a woman of secrets, aren't you? Anya felt a chill run down her spine. Gone was the warmth, the encouragement, the subtle familiarity that had blossomed in the kitchen. He had returned to his reserved demeanor, his eyes now a steely gray. I don't understand, Anya faltered, her voice barely a whisper. The truth, she had hoped, would have softened him. Don't play coy with me, Anya, Luca said, his voice a low murmur that echoed through the suddenly silent kitchen. I know who you are. And I know what you did. Anya's breath hitched. He had discovered her, not through her words, but through the whispers of the past, the shared memories that had inadvertently slipped through. He knew the truth, the hurt she had inflicted, and the pain that she had unknowingly caused. I came here looking for a chance to apologize, she began, her voice gaining a fraction of its strength. To make things right. He shook his head, his expression hardening. Apology doesn't erase the pain you caused, Anya, he said, his voice filled with a simmering anger that surprised her. You left me, you shattered my dreams, you broke my heart, and you never even looked back. Anya's eyes widened. The anger, the hurt, the raw emotion in his voice, was something she had never expected. She had known he was hurt, she had known she had wronged him, but she had never imagined the depth of his pain. You don't understand, she said, her voice trembling. I was afraid. I was young and I made a terrible mistake. But I never intended to cause you such pain. Afraid, Luca scoffed. His laughter was a bitter sound, a harsh whisper that chilled the air. You were afraid of commitment, of love, of sharing your life with someone. But you were never afraid of hurting someone, were you, Anya? He moved closer, his gaze piercing her, his presence a physical weight pressing down on her. You thought you could just disappear, erase those memories, and move on, didn't you? He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in the movement. But the past has a way of catching up with you, Anya, and it has finally caught up with you. Anya stood her ground, her heart pounding in her chest. He was angry, she knew, but she was not afraid. She had faced her guilt, her fear, and she wouldn't shrink from his judgment. You are right, Luca, she said, her voice steady, her eyes meeting his. I hurt you deeply, and I am truly sorry. But I did not come here seeking your forgiveness. I came here seeking to understand the man you have become, to acknowledge the pain I caused, and to find a way to make things right. His anger, initially simmering, began to burn brighter. Make things right. He laughed, the sound hollow and devoid of warmth. Do you think you can simply erase the pain? He moved closer, his voice a low growl. You broke my heart, Anya, and you thought you could just walk back into my life, into my world, and expect me to accept your apology? You're wrong. He stared at her, his eyes intense, the heat of his anger a tangible presence around them. Anya, despite the fear that pulsed in her veins, stood her ground. She felt a surge of defiance, a newfound resolve to not only admit her mistakes but to own them, to offer not only apology but also a commitment to make amends, to somehow make peace with the ghosts of their past. Luca's anger, though undeniably powerful, did not intimidate her. It fueled her resolve, reminding her of the gravity of her actions, the depth of his hurt, and the importance of her journey to seek redemption. This was not the beginning of a second chance. This was the beginning of a reckoning, a confrontation she had to endure, a truth she had to face. Chapter 18: The Beginning of Revenge. The air hung heavy with unspoken tension as Luca's gaze met Anya's. The spark of warmth that had briefly ignited during their shared culinary exploration had vanished, replaced by a simmering intensity that felt colder than the Tuscan night. He was hurt, she understood that. Anger, raw and unfiltered, burned in his eyes, a testament to the pain she had inflicted. And while Anya knew she deserved every bit of his anger, she also knew that this was not about punishment, but about a journey, a quest for redemption. You want to make things right? Luca asked, his voice a chilling whisper that echoed through the silence. You want to understand the hurt you caused? Anya nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. She was prepared to face his anger, to confront her past, to endure whatever challenges he might throw her way. Then you'll work for it, Luca said, his words a cold declaration. You'll earn my understanding, Anya. You'll prove your sincerity. He moved closer, his presence a palpable force, a reminder of the power he wielded within these walls, the man he had become. You will face a series of challenges, Anya, he said, his voice a low rumble. Not just culinary challenges, but personal, emotional ones. They won't be easy. But, if you are truly sincere, you will persevere. He extended a hand, a gesture that seemed both threatening and somehow strangely encouraging. Welcome to the crucible, Anya, Luca said, his voice laced with a subtle hint of amusement. Welcome to the path to redemption. Anya stepped forward, her hand meeting his. The touch, brief and electric, sent a tremor through her. It was a handshake, an agreement, a declaration of war. She was ready for this, ready to face the crucible, to prove herself, to earn his understanding. Luca's words echoed in her mind as she walked through the restaurant, a symphony of simmering resentment replacing the warmth that had once enveloped her. He was not offering forgiveness, nor was he accepting an apology. He was offering a challenge, a test not just of her culinary skills but of her character, her resilience, her very soul. Her journey had just begun. The following weeks were a blur of intense activity. Luca, with a masterfully orchestrated cruelty, transformed her life from a peaceful haven to a relentless crucible. He demanded her presence in the kitchen, pushed her to her limits, and forced her to face new challenges with each passing day. The menu he crafted, a canvas of his culinary genius, became her battlefield. He challenged her to recreate his signature dishes, forcing her to decipher the complexities of flavor combinations, the delicate balance of spice and sweetness, the alchemy of heat and acidity. He introduced her to a world of intricate techniques, demanding she master the art of delicate sauces, the precision of plating, the balance of textures. She had to learn to deconstruct a dish, decipher its secrets, and recreate it with her own nuanced understanding. And while the culinary challenges were daunting, they were not the most challenging. It was Luca's manipulation of her emotions that proved truly formidable. He would deliberately undermine her efforts, belittle her culinary skills, question her passion, and expose her vulnerabilities with a subtle cruelty that left her reeling. He had a talent for turning her perceived strengths into weaknesses, for exploiting her insecurities with a chilling precision. Even when she succeeded, when she impressed the students, when her creations garnered praise, He would always find a fault, a flaw, a way to remind her that she was not worthy, not yet. But Anya, fueled by a burning desire for redemption, refused to give in. She recognized the truth. This was not about mastering culinary techniques but about mastering herself. He was a master of his craft, but she was a woman of character, a woman who had learned to endure pain, to face her fears, and to rise from the ashes of her past. The road to understanding, she knew, would be long and arduous. But she was not defined by her past but by her journey, by her commitment, by her unwavering hope that one day, she would be able to win back a sliver of the love, the respect, and the forgiveness she so desperately craved. The crucible, though scorching, was not going to break her. It was going to make her stronger. It was going to make her worthy. This challenge, she knew, was just the beginning. Chapter 19, Tough Love. Luca's kitchen had become Anya's battlefield, a relentless crucible where her past mistakes were constantly being held up as a mirror reflecting her perceived inadequacy. He was a master of subtle cruelty, his calm demeanor masking a steely resolve to break her, to expose her vulnerabilities, and to force her to confront her shortcomings. Every day brought a new challenge, a new obstacle to overcome. He demanded that she master the art of delicate sauces, the precision of plating, the balance of textures, and the complexity of flavors. He challenged her to experiment, to push boundaries, to create dishes that not only tantalized the taste buds but also revealed a depth of understanding, a mastery of craft that she never knew she possessed. She learned about the delicate dance of herbs and spices, how to coax out the essence of each ingredient, how to blend flavors into a harmonious symphony. She discovered the power of simplicity, the art of highlighting the natural beauty of each component, building upon individual taste profiles to create a crescendo of flavors. He taught her how to manipulate textures, to balance the creamy richness of a sauce with the crispness of a vegetable, the softness of a pasta with the crunch of a nut. And while he pushed her to her limits, to the very edge of her frustration, he also, surprisingly, provided a platform for her growth. "You have a natural talent for flavor profiles," he would say, his voice laced with a surprising warmth despite the harshness of his words. "You can identify the nuances, the subtle complexity of each ingredient. And that, Anya, is a gift." It was a gift that had long been buried, a seed that, under the harsh gaze of his criticism and the unrelenting pressure of his demands, now bloomed in the fertile ground of his kitchen. Anya, though initially struggling with his demanding nature, found herself pushing her boundaries, exceeding her own expectations. As she continued to learn and grow, she discovered a passion for the culinary arts that she had never before experienced. She embraced the challenge, the discomfort, the constant pressure, as a means to not only prove herself to Luca but also to discover the hidden depths of her own creativity. The kitchen, once an intimidating, hostile environment, became her sanctuary, her refuge. She found solace in the rhythmic chopping of vegetables, the delicate simmering of sauces, the aroma of spices filling the air, the dance of fire and flavor. It was a world of pure creation, a world where she could express herself, where she could explore her limits, where she could shed the shackles of her past and embrace the freedom of a newfound passion. And as she continued her relentless pursuit of culinary mastery, Anya couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude for Luca's harshness, for his relentless demands. It was tough love, she knew, but it was the very love she needed, the very fire that ignited the untapped potential she had always held within. She was learning valuable lessons, not just about cooking but also about herself. She was discovering her strength, her perseverance, her resilience. She was confronting her fears, pushing her boundaries, and discovering an inner strength she never knew she possessed. Luca, with his relentless cruelty, was teaching her that true happiness, true fulfillment, can only be found in breaking free from self-imposed limitations, from the shadows of her past, and embracing the boundless possibilities that life offered. She was discovering that she was not only capable of succeeding in the kitchen but also of transforming her life, of finding her own path to redemption. And as she worked tirelessly in Luca's kitchen, Anya realized that her journey was not just about earning Luca's understanding, but also about rediscovering herself, about embracing the woman she was truly meant to be. The kitchen, far from being a prison, had become her classroom, her laboratory, the place where she was rediscovering her own identity, a place where she was ultimately finding her own path to reconciliation. Chapter 20: Building Bridges. The tension lingered in the air, a palpable presence that hung like a veil between Anya and Luca. Their shared passion for food, though undeniable, was not enough to erase the hurt and resentment that had festered between them. Luca, a man of guarded emotions, remained a constant reminder of the past, of the unforgivable act she had committed. Despite the resentment that simmered between them, Anya continued to push herself in the kitchen, eager to prove her worth, to earn a glimmer of respect, to perhaps one day bridge the chasm that separated them. She found a sense of purpose in her work, a renewed passion for the culinary arts that had been awakened by Luca's unrelenting scrutiny. He would scrutinize her creations, critique her techniques, pushing her to refine her skills, to become more than just a talented amateur, to embrace true mastery. But as Anya's talent bloomed, as her understanding of flavor and texture deepened, a subtle change began to take place. Luca's criticisms, though still sharp, were laced with a hint of appreciation, his critiques laced with a subtle respect. He started to offer more than just instruction, more than just criticism. He offered insight, he offered guidance, he offered, on occasion, even encouragement. One evening, after a particularly challenging session, during which Anya had managed to master a complex sauce, he surprised her with a rare compliment. "You've come a long way, Anya," he said, his voice a low rumble, almost a murmur. "This sauce, it's phenomenal. You've captured the essential essence of the dish." Anya felt a warmth spread through her, a sense of accomplishment, a flicker of hope. The warmth, although fleeting, was a testament to her progress, a sign that he was beginning to see her, not just her past, but her potential, her ability to grow. As they worked together, sometimes late into the night, Anya discovered a shared language, a common ground in the world of ingredients, techniques, and flavors. They would discuss the subtle nuances of a spice, debate the merits of different cooking methods, analyze the complexities of flavor profiles, and engage in heated discussions about culinary philosophies. It was in these moments, amidst the chaos and the intensity of the kitchen, that the tension between them started to ease, a bridge of mutual respect beginning to emerge from the chasm of their past. "What is it about food that brings people together?" Anya asked one evening, a thought that had been swirling in her mind ever since she arrived. "What makes a simple meal a celebration?" Luca looked up from his notebook, a thoughtful expression on his face. "It's not just the food, Anya," he said, his voice soft, almost contemplative. "It's the experience, the shared connection, the stories we tell over a meal. It's the warmth, the laughter, the passion that we pour into every dish." Anya nodded, her heart touched by his insightful response. She, too, had felt the warmth of shared meals, the power of a simple gathering, the magic of a well-prepared dish. But their shared passion, though a source of connection, was not enough to erase the scars of the past. The tension remained, a constant reminder of their fractured relationship, a reminder of the journey they were yet to complete. But Anya, with newfound strength and resilience, felt a glimmer of hope. She had come to Italy seeking forgiveness, and while forgiveness might be a distant dream, understanding, respect, and perhaps a touch of shared passion had begun to bloom. The bridge was still under construction, the foundation shaky, but it was a bridge nonetheless, a step towards a future they could not yet fully envision. The journey, she realized, was not just about Luca, it was also about herself, about her own transformative journey to accept her past, heal her wounds, and discover the woman she was truly meant to be. And, in the face of his relentless scrutiny, she had begun to rise, to reclaim her identity, to find a sense of purpose that extended beyond the walls of his kitchen.
The tension is palpable. The stakes are higher than ever. What secrets will be revealed in chapters 21 to 30? The journey continues. Show your support by liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more intense drama and delicious twists. See you in the next chapter.